Right, we are going to be using the whiteboards today because it's a return of 3-word summaries. We like to do this a couple of times a year, something like that. We did this, I think, after round 5 of this season, so we'll see what's changed as we are now in the summer break. We're going to run through all 10 teams in championship order and give them a 3-word summary for the season. It's completely up to us as to what we choose to focus on. It could be one of the particular drivers. It could be the team itself. It could be on the circuits. It could be off the track. We'll wait and see. But we are going to start with, of course, the team at the top of the championship, that being McLaren. 3-word summary for McLaren.
Okay, just trying to make the handwriting legible.
A regular challenge for myself.
Yeah, I mean, as a show, we're not exactly the best at like calligraphy, are we?
You know what? We are not late calligraphy for a reason.
Hang on, as a left-handed man, I've always struggled to be somewhat neat with my handwriting, but all right, I'm ready if you are.
I am ready indeed. So, 3-word summary for McLaren. Sam has gone for Civil War Brewing,
Yes.
whereas I have gone for 4-figure finish. Sam, you think there's a Civil War brewing?
I do. I don't think culturally any top team can keep two apex athletes in a happy place. And they have both started the season so competitively, so strongly. You look at Oscar, 6 wins, Lando, 5 wins, Oscar, 12 podiums in total. That includes the wings, of course. Lando, 12 podiums in total. And we get 14 races into the season, and they are separated by, I think it's 9 points, something like that, which is crazy. That is crazy to be 14 races in and 9 points separated. They are both powerhouses of this younger generation of Formula One, and this is their first opportunity to achieve the goal of their lifetime. It's something that they have strove for. That's something they've strived for their entire lives growing up to this point. Now, we know that Lando Norris got a bit of a sniff last year against Max Verstappen, but it felt like realistically going up against Max when he was a little bit less experienced was always a tough call. And that's no disrespect to Lando Norris, as Max Verstappen is a beast. But now it's, well and truly in his hands whether he can take this championship or not. And he has one opponent, and it's Oscar Piastri. And I do feel like with the conversation about how should we celebrate, how we talk to each other, how do we go racing, McLaren are trying very hard to tread a very narrow and delicate path between these two drivers. And they clearly don't want to upset the apple cart while also going for the ultimate goal in sport, the championship at the pinnacle level. So I really think that as much as they're trying, we will start to see cracks. We will start to see it fracture. I don't know if it'll ever get to the point, of where we saw Webber and Seb multi-21 or Hamilton Rosberg with caps being thrown. But I would be shocked if they are as pally towards the end of this season as they have been through the start of this season.
It's an interesting one in that where we've had partnerships like team partnerships that have carried on and had success, most of them have come about as a result of having that clear number 1 and number 2 driver. Yeah. Schumacher, Barrichello, sort of into Webber and Vettel. And even though there were difficulties between the two of those, that did last for sort of 5 years. Hamilton, Bottas. The ones where it's been pretty close, Hamilton, Rosberg, Senna, Prost, they haven't lasted as long. Hamilton, Alonso, if you want to, I know they didn't win a championship, but they didn't stand the test of time. So it'll be interesting to see what happens with Piastri and Norris, not only this season, but extending across the next few seasons, if they can keep up this pace of competing for championships. Because if they can remain a unit and this civil war doesn't break out, in one respect, it is a little bit of making history. That there isn't a lot of evidence of it in the past.
I'd be shocked if it happens, though. Ben, come on, talk us through yours.
4-figure finish. So, McLaren at the moment are on 559 points, which, to be honest, they're not far off what they had last year to win the Constructors' Championship already. It means that overall they have scored 86.4% of all available points this year. Not too shabby at all. 10 races to go, including 3 sprints. If they were to keep up this pace, they would be on track for roughly 970 points.
Oh,
which by itself, like that would already break Red Bull's record that they had in 2023 by over 100 points. So if they don't break the record, I will be very surprised. They only need 63.6% of their available points to get to beat Red Bull. So given, again, they are over 20% above that for the season so far, I think they're going to be all right. But my question is, can they hit 1,000? Because it's not out of the question. It is a tall order. Like there is basically zero margin for error. They would need to score at a rate of like 93% for the rest of this year. And they could only afford to drop 34 points from now until the end of the year. It's not impossible.
34 points drop from now until the end of the year. So that is essentially a 1-2 in every single Grand Prix and sprint, barring 2, pretty much.
Yeah, there's not a lot of margin for error at all, really.
Oh, Benny boy, take a sip of the tea. Take a sip of the tea.
Oh, we on the struggle bus, boy.
He's got that summer cold vibe.
Yeah. There would not be a lot of room for error at all. Like they couldn't have another Canada as an example.
Fascinating. I don't know if I want to live in a world where an F1 team can score over 1,000 points in a season.
Yeah, but we might. It's unlikely, but we might.
I had to deal with a lot of weird things like that tuna pizza, the pesto, mate.
Checo Pesto.
Checo Pesto Perez. And it's tuna pizza. Sounds like a kid's character.
Yeah, not one I want to meet.
No.
One last stat on this, on how McLaren have done so far this year. Their average finish, I guess, 2.76 so far this year. If you were to put together their 34 race finishes for this season and just list them from best to worst, so that's including all of the sprints and all of the races, so 17 each. Their 6th worst result of the 34 is a P3.
So we're ignoring the DNF in Canada.
No, we're not ignoring it.
No, that's what I said. But I said it's coming. Yeah. So that will be last, and then the Piastri 9th place in Australia. That's come and gone as well. Wow, it's amazing how consistent the pair of them have been in securing top 2 finishes throughout this season. That is amazing. You look at races like Japan, and you think even with a car that dominant, they couldn't get past Max Verstappen. It shows you that maybe Formula One isn't fit for some racetracks if we can't actually make an overtake.
Yeah, pretty incredible consistency. We'll see how they get on for the rest of this year. To Ferrari, who are second in the championship, somehow. What about a 3-word summary for them?
Mine is far less analytical than mine was for McLaren.
Oh, okay.
And more to the point. I'm ready when you are.
Here we go. Sort it out.
And Ben Gill says?
And mine is, we are checking.
Very good. Do you want to go through yours first?
Sure, let's do it. We are checking. Sounds a little bit mysterious. What am I talking about? A bit ambiguous. We are checking. I've said it because it's the answer to the question, how are we P2? We are checking because they don't know and neither do I. How are they second place? It is insane. They've had a double disqualification in China. They have no wins. They've had one second place. Hamilton hasn't had a podium outside of a sprint. They've had 1 pole position. Neither driver's in the top 4 in the championship. Leclerc had a nightmare at Silverstone. Hamilton had a nightmare at Hungary. Hamilton has failed to make Q3 4 times. And all of that added together is the same position they were last year. It doesn't make sense to me.
No, it definitely feels like Ferrari's season is more not a case of their own ability, but rather a showing of the lack of ability of other teams right now. And, I'm not saying that's because they're just incompetent. Mercedes have come out and explained their issues. We know what's going on with Red Bull. And so Ferrari have been their consistent poor selves, but it just means that nothing goes so disastrously wrong that they've fallen down the order, much like, what season was it, 2020, 2019, where they had, 2020, they had one of the worst seasons going, right, where they were, 6th or 7th in the Constructors that year?
Yeah, that was bad.
Abysmal. And I reckon if actually that year hadn't happened, this year might be looked at actually as where are the results? Like, yeah, you're second, but it's just because you've got two good drivers that are able to finish religiously in the top 6 or 7 every single race where the other teams do not. I've said sort it out, and pretty much for the same reason as you, Ben, but I mean structurally sort it out now, because there are only so many years and so many seasons that we could go through the Ferrari chaos cycle of we sew back, we got back, and then at the start of the next season, we then go, we sew back again. Because Ferrari fans, you're all, and I do partially count myself in this, massive optimists, blind optimists. We see a 10th of a second away from a pole, or we see an upgrade on the horizon, and it's, oh, here we go, world championship coming. And then it's like, yeah, Leclerc P4, Hamilton P7, and you're like, nothing
maximum
changed.
Points.
Your maximum point score from pole to podium, or pole to points, even worse, actually. That team, whilst being led by Fred Vasseur, are being driven by Hamilton and Leclerc. That is too good a situation, too good a setup to waste. So going into this new regulation and dealing with the final 10 races, sort it out. You know, Hamilton shouldn't be having these issues with Adani. Leclerc shouldn't be having to go through these explanations over his radio to his race engineer about how things are confusing, things aren't set up properly. Where's the conversation about direction when they go for their race strategy? That shouldn't be happening. You never hear it with other teams. It shouldn't be happening. And then the upgrades don't work. And regularly, they don't work. Decisions are falling by the wayside. You know, you were winning races. You were the closest team to maybe snatching a constructors away from McLaren last year. It kind of didn't happen. There's every chance you might have done so. And yet, you've gone so far backwards because decision after decision, whilst maybe only small, adds up to a very big thing. And it's just, who is calling the shots from a technical directive point of view? Because it is starting to falter. Is it purely Fred? Is Fred relying on someone internally? You know, we've seen these issues for a long time. And Ferrari have lost some key personnel, whether good or bad. Bonotto, of course, is at Sauber. Lauren Mekis is now that blooming head of Red Bull, which is a strange development in life.
Sure.
Yeah, it's just, you know, there's been a lot of changes in that team, and yet they are in almost exactly the same spot that they were. That tells me that, I don't know, the world can be chaotic, but Ferrari is constant, and constantly not good enough seems to be where they are. So going into this new regulation, Mercedes are being touted to have this powerhouse of a power unit, and everyone looks like it might be a 2014 recreation where if you have their power unit there, you're ahead. You're going to be in the top 5 of the championship. Ferrari, you need to get on it. You need to do something different and actually just have a successful year. What, 2007, the last time they won anything properly? We're nearly at 2 decades at this point. Come on.
I'm predominantly angry with them, not because I'm a Ferrari fan. I'm not a fan of a particular team or a particular driver, but I am a fan of this sport being competitive, and Ferrari at least somewhat is contributing to it not being as competitive as it probably should be. Like, if they were more on it, we might have a championship battle between them and McLaren, and instead, McLaren are absolutely walking away from this. So that's like my predominant emotion towards Ferrari. But then I've also got this, like, maybe I should just actually give them a compliment once in a while and say, well, the car is clearly not as good as it could be. They're making the most out of it.
Sure.
Yeah, it's a tough one.
Sure.
Mercedes are up next, currently P3 in the championship.
Also, Ben, you do a very good job at reading this backwards every time I show it to you on screen.
Oh, it's coming up forward for me.
Oh, is it? On my screen, it's in reverse. Good.
That's just one of my talents, reading.
I can read. I'm learning. Okay,
cheers,
I'm ready to show.
Okay, here we go. Mercedes. I've gone with title charge loading. And Sam has gone, give Russell respect.
Yeah,
why should we give Russell respect?
I've gone one driver this time. There's been so much talk about Max Verstappen to Mercedes all throughout the season. And Russell is having, again, I don't know if it's as good as last season, but that might be down to the car. But he is having right up there with his best season in Formula One again. And that is so tough when every single time that George Russell goes to have a good season, there seems to be another dominant force that he has to contend with all on his own. We've already spoken about how that car, that Mercedes upgrade that, basically took hold in Canada, took the car backwards. It meant they couldn't compete. But the one time it did work and the one time everything did come together, namely Canada, where all the cards aligned, he won. He was great. He was so good. And then Hungary, they went, maybe this isn't working. Maybe we should change things. Podium, just nabs that off Leclerc. I know Leclerc had damage. I know Leclerc was struggling and that Ferrari was not doing well, but he was brilliant. Even throughout a really rain-affected Silverstone where he made the wrong strategy call, his driving was pretty sensational. That battle that he was having with Hamilton was fantastic. Didn't go his way, but the actual driving itself was so good. He has been still stealing podiums up and down this season when, quite frankly, he doesn't have the right to. He does not have the right to those positions. And I just think it's so disrespectful to someone like George Russell, whose ability is immense. He is. I think that you speculated this. Is he a top 3 driver right now? We had the question on, I think it was Patreon the other day, of if he was in a third identical McLaren, would he be winning this championship? It's a real question.
It's a spicy question.
It's a spicy question, but it's a genuine question that I think, go and debate it at home, folks. Take it to your friends and ask. Let us know your thoughts. Because I genuinely think there's a fair argument for yes and for no. And that tells you something. Now, they've got George Russell in their roster and their lineup. And I get it's Max Verstappen. There's one, maybe one clear driver above George Russell that you go all out to get, and that is Max Verstappen right now. But you've got George Russell. You've got him. He's in your team. You can lock him down, give him what he wants. He's committed to you for a lifetime. And he's still leading your team by a clear margin. I know Kimi Antonelli's in his first season, but you need that experienced driver. And Russell's still got, 14 years maybe of racing left? He's going to be around forever at this point. So put some respect on George Russell's name. He gets no respect. And he should, because he's really quite brilliant. And Mercedes should maybe not look over their neighbour's fence, look at the grass on the other side and realise just how good it is on this side.
We've got a pretty good lawn ourselves.
Yeah. I think
Mercedes.
George is out there mowing it. He'd be the first out there to volunteer to mow it. He would.
Of course he would. I've gone with title charge loading. Now, just because something's loading doesn't mean it will be complete in a future year. We've experienced that. You remember loading up the PlayStation 2 and thinking, here we go, and then memory card or disc not inserted. Yeah, exactly. You never know. But it's loading. 2025 hasn't been brilliant. They have had some highlights, obviously. Canadian GP would be top of that list. Antonelli's sprint pole in Miami. 5 other George Russell podiums as well. But overall, not been a great year for Mercedes so far. I was having a look at this. Because one of the things about Mercedes in previous years when they were really successful is their bulletproof consistency, almost like what McLaren have right now.
Yeah.
And, they, at this point in the season, have had 8 non-scores in Grand Prix. So either retirements or outside the points. And I was having a look back at previous years. In 2024, after the same point in the season, they had 4. 2023, 3. 2022, 3. 2021, 2. So 8 is quite a bit higher than what they've averaged even outside of their dominant years. You have to go all the way back to 2012 for the last time they had more than 8 non-finishes or non-scores at the same point in the season. The suspension upgrade, obviously, completely the wrong direction with that. They were averaging 23 points per race in the first 6 races of the year. Since they introduced that, last 8 races, 12 points per race, pretty much half. But having said all of that, 2025 is not a major concern for them because putting Antonelli in that car proved that. As soon as you made that decision, you were saying, this isn't the year we're targeting. It's next year or it's the year after. And what they're predominantly looking to do is get George Russell, I think, in a position to win a Drivers' Championship if the car is good enough next year. I think he is good enough now if the car is there. What he's been able to do against Hamilton last year, what he's done against Antonelli this year. Sure, they would have liked to get him in a position to win more races or at least put him in more competitive situations. But overall, that's looking good. And now with this suspension redirection, they'll be hoping to get Antonelli's confidence back so he can be good enough to secure the team a Constructors' Championship, again, if the car is good enough. So that's why I've gone with title charge loading.
You talk about that stat of 8, non-point scores up until this point, and it kind of really nicely backs up my Russell point that 7 of those 8 have come from Kimi Antonelli. And that's no slight on Kimi Antonelli. He's a rookie. You expect lower scores. You expect risks to be taken, mistakes to be made. But if you were to have 2 George Russells racing for you, and one world where you have 2 George Russells, right. Crikey, blimey, a lot of sweat going on, then actually you've only got 2 non-points finishes for the whole of the season so far. So it just shows you, even with a car that is not the quality that maybe he should be having, he's still delivering so regularly inside of the points when it's so much harder to do so.
Up next is Red Bull, currently 4th in the championship, but 3 words for them. What do we have, Sam?
Total rebuild needed.
Oof. And I've gone with gives you headaches.
Oh, Red Bull gives you headaches.
Yeah.
Just so we're clear legally, that doesn't mean the drink.
No, just the team. So you think they need a complete and utter rebuild?
Yeah, and I'm hoping Lauren Mekies is the man to do that, but I'm not convinced, right? I need him to prove that he is the guy that can do this. I'm willing to give him the time and the space, but when you let go the guy that has run that team since its actual inception, 6 months before arguably the biggest change in regulations that we've had for over a decade, you probably think, oh, it's a little bit tricky on time. It's a little bit close to the line on will Lauren know what's going on? Will he be able to understand where the direction Red Bull are taking things? Can he manage the Ford relationship that's coming in? Yep. Max Verstappen is one of the biggest personalities, of course, the biggest driver, not physically, I just mean like in terms of ability. Right now in Formula One, can he manage that relationship effectively? Currently, it seems like he's got it under control. But there are so many moving parts. He's spinning so many frisbees or plates, I suppose is the phrase. I like frisbees.
It's Red Bull. It might be frisbees.
Frisbees actually are meant to spin. Plates, on the other hand, you tend to just put them on your table. And I do just think that we've lost so many key personnel from Red Bull. It's essentially a new team at this point. They've got so many individuals that have walked out the door. I do think there's a real worry that they could be on a huge downward slide here. And I don't just mean, a slow tumble. I'm talking avalanche. I'm talking throwing everything down the cliff, and they might end up right at the bottom if they don't get this right, if they do not do some damage control and pull things back together. I think Max Verstappen is frustrated that his teammate can't regularly score points. I think he is fed up of a car that is so on the line that he has to drive it in such a way to win races. You hear him over the radio at the moment. This setup doesn't make sense. I've got no grip. There's no turning. Nothing's working properly. And yet he's still producing podiums, top 5 finishes on a regular basis. Just credit to how good he is. I think he wants a car that he feels comfortable in. He has a guy backing him up, at least in the top 3 or 4 places. And actually, he might not win championships, but he has the opportunity to win. And a driver of that ability deserves that chance. So they are at risk of losing a whole hell of a lot. It is a really big turning point coming up in 6 months' time. They need a rebuild, and it needs to go the right way. Otherwise, they could find themselves behind a lot of teams that are trying to advance.
Yeah, I mean, my one gives you headaches. Red Bull gives you wings is the commonly touted phrase. Red Bull gives you wins would have been appropriate in the past, but now Red Bull gives you headaches, and itself headaches. Everything that's happened at Red Bull feels horribly timed. And this goes back to you thinking that a rebuild is necessary. The timing of all of these events is just horrible because Christian Horner's job was, of course, in question at the start of the 2024 season when it came to allegations that were made against him. And of course, at that point, the appeal was dismissed. Important distinction. I know it's happened a long time ago. It was dismissed. He was not cleared. It was dismissed. But an alternate timeline is that he might have lost his job there and then, which obviously has just happened later down the line instead. If it happens at that point, Jonathan Wheatley probably steps up to be team principal. Adrian Newey, maybe that causes him to stay. And suddenly you've got, the same sort of structure just without Christian Horner. You would have had 2 full years at that point, 2024 and 2025, to get on top of the Max Verstappen situation regarding his contract, sorting out the second seat that you just alluded to, have a new team principal really obtain control over those key relationships like Ford. We know that Christian Horner not only was he very powerful, but he was more than just the team principal. So it's not the average transition that you'd have from team principal to team principal because of all of the other extra responsibilities that he had. Instead, key personnel have left a regime that isn't even in place anymore, which kind of leaves them in a really awkward spot. Like, what is Red Bull right now? They are a star driver who is tentatively staying for one more year. You've got a second seat dilemma that's not going anywhere. You've got a new team principal who has 6 months to get up to speed with the 2026 regulations. As I've mentioned before, there is a reason the likes of Audi, for example, made the switch from Andreas Seidel to Binotto and later Jonathan Wheatley when they did. It was to give them enough time. Like, that happened pretty much a year ago now. It gave them 18 months, a clear runway at this. Mekis doesn't have that. So this will, of course, be the first car as well with zero Newey development 2026. Unsure about the engine. This is a tough time for Red Bull, a real uncertain time for Red Bull. And it's just incredible that 2023, that dominant season, it was just 2 years ago.
Yeah, the downfall is so quick. I don't know if you've ever seen a faster downfall than this in a Formula One team. It's crazy how quickly they went from being the most dominant record-breaking team we've ever seen to barely scraping a podium in a race.
But I think even at the time it was happening, we were discussing the frailties, like the internal issues that Red Bull were having, even when they were dominating in a way that kind of wasn't the case when Mercedes were dominating. It wasn't very noisy when Mercedes were winning championships. Even when Red Bull were dominating, the cracks were there that if the performance fell off, all of this might start to crumble away. And that's kind of what's happened.
Yeah, you look at the names that they've lost. I mean, even just the three of Wheatley, Newey and Marshall over the last 4 or 5 years, that alone is enough to make a powerhouse of an F1 team. You need those 3 men and you've got almost an unbeatable formula. And look how well they're all starting to do already. Marshall's already won titles. We'll get on to Wheatley and Sauber later, but look at the development there already. And then, of course, we're just waiting for Adrian Newey to sneeze into the year of 2026. I'm sure they'll win a race at least. So, really tough for Red Bull to know where they go from here.
Let's finish off the top half of the championship with Williams, currently P5.
I have gone with gone too soon.
Gone too soon. That's I was going to say that's cryptic, but I understand what you're getting at there.
I don't mean they've died.
Yes. Okay. I've gone with one particular driver, and I've gone with Albon answers critics.
Ooh, okay. Love that. That.
So you want to go too soon?
Oh, okay. I'll go. Ironically, I went too soon in asking. I think I've alluded to this quite a few times. Val's strategy when he came in was the correct strategy, I think, in the sense that, he made very vocally, very publicly declared that Williams are not building for now, and this is when he joined, of course, a few years ago now. They're not building for immediate race wins. They're not aiming for podiums in the next season. Their goal is 2026 and beyond. They saying he wanted to start being a competitive force, properly podiums and regularly fighting for top fives, 2026. And then they would look to be a championship competitor by the end of these regulations that are coming up, which will end in 2030. Now, that's a great and ambitious goal to have. And it felt logical. It felt achievable. It felt realistic. And in the place where Williams were, with their facilities being a lower quality than a lot of their key competitors around them, just due to when the cost cap came in and funding that Williams had previously had under the actual Williams family, they weren't able to invest as much as when they do with Doralton Capital, for example, that own them now. They are still not with one hand behind their back, but they are still definitely at a bit of an inconvenience in comparison to, say, Aston Martin with their brand new wind tunnel, or McLaren, who have done something very similar as of recent. But I think they've gone too soon in the sense of this journey that they were meant to be on. They've started to see the deficit before they really hit the peak. They came into 2025 and they were having the best start to their season that we've seen in a long time. You know, Alex Albon picked up multiple top 5 finishes. Carlos Sainz, despite struggling, was regularly inside the points. And how often have we had both Williams drivers finishing inside the points on more than one race a season? What, 4 or 5 times in the last 10 years? It really was that rare. So that increase in performance ability shouldn't be coming now. It should be coming next season. And that should be backed by them having a lot more wind tunnel development time, a longer radius of development in the car, with time for Albon and Sainz to continue to grow with how the new regulations work. And actually, I think it's like when you hit what's it called? The second base in Everest. That's not the real peak. You've just hit the base camp. You know, you've got the rest of the mountain to climb. Yeah, you haven't got to the top. You know, you got to put your oxygen on and get climbing. And I do think that unfortunately this season they've gone, yes, we're on the rise. And other teams have now started to build. They're now using their development. They're now picking things up. At this change of wind tunnel time allocation they've got for the rest of this season, they have less than all their key competitors. There's a chance that if other teams around them don't keep scoring big points and status quo is kind of stagnant, then they might not be passed by too many teams. And actually, they'll go into the end of 2025 and the new regulations will kick in. And again, they'll have less wind tunnel time to oh my goodness, talking is hard. Wind tunnel time than teams below them in the championship. And I do think that essentially they've had a false start. They've gone too soon this season. That's a real shame and a real risk. I'm hoping that James Vowles, as much as we trust him and we love him, he knows what he's doing. He knows how it's gone. And actually, they will come out into 2026 and it will be a marked improvement because I do not want to see them go, look at all this brilliant stuff we've done, and then start 2026 and they're P8 in the championship. That will be a real disappointment.
It would. It'll be an interesting one to see like where the improvement has come from at least in the first part of this season. I suspect it might have come about as a result of a couple of easy wins because we know that Williams really struggled to start the season last time around and had some real structural issues. And I think they started to solve those to the point where a bit of a jump was maybe inevitable. But I mean, to your point about how much they've improved, they've scored 70 points in the last 14 races. They scored 66 points in the previous 79 races. It's pretty incredible. I went with Albon answers critics because I'll admit I was a skeptic. I was going to say I was a doubter, but I'll a skeptic just based on Albon's record up until this season. He was destroyed by Max Verstappen, which isn't a crime. Many others have. But he beat his teammates at Williams. The problem is they were Latifi, Sargent, and a debuting Franco Colapinto. Nothing to be overly convinced by. But this year, so far, he is 54-16 up on Sainz in terms of points. Albon had 16 points after 2 races. So if Albon had scored nothing since China, he would be level with Sainz right now, which is pretty incredible. He's 10-4 up in races, 8-6 up in qualifying, 8 Q3 appearances, so over half of the races so far. Sainz has had 5. If Vowles can help Carlos Sainz get to where he needs to be, and we've seen it from Sainz in other places, there is reason to be confident about that. That is a very good lineup going into 2026 now that Albon has started to prove himself against a better competitor. Who's got a better lineup going into 2026? McLaren? Ferrari? Maybe I'd maybe say Red Bull as well because I appreciate it's a one-person team, but I think Verstappen and a stapler would be a better lineup than most teams on the grid. But outside of that,
Verstappen and Clippy.
Hey, Clippy, he can race, all right. He's got
he can race to annoy me.
Yes, true. So yeah, I've got Albon answers critics, aka me.
AKA me.
Aston Martin, P6 in the championship, a little bit higher up than what they were the last time we did this.
Just a tad.
And 3 words for them. That's 2.
Good.
And 3. There we go.
Good. Aston
Martin, what have you gone for?
The kettle's on.
The kettle's on. I've gone with stats have context.
Oh, all right. Yeah. I'm going to sit back, mate. The kettle's on. It's boiling. It's brewing.
Right, yeah.
You crack on.
Okay. Sorry, I have to do this. Aston Martin have 52 points this year. Alonso has 26 and Stroll has 26.
Yeah.
They've been as good as each other, right? No, they haven't. I'm sorry. I wanted to go down a different path on this, and then I couldn't resist.
There's that one guy. I'm not going to name you, my friend, but you hate how much these guys love Fernando Alonso. This is going to be a whole bowl of that for you, so you may just want to skip forward.
He's been pretty good. I don't even think Alonso's been great. I think Alonso's been pretty good, and he's been better than Lance Stroll. But in terms of points, it doesn't look that way. Alonso has had 6 Q3 appearances this year. Stroll has had 2. Do you remember that time Stroll beat Alonso in qualifying this year?
I'm going to just wrap my brain. No.
No, because he hasn't. Alonso's 9-5 up in terms of races, and Alonso has had a good deal of bad luck. I know he called himself the unluckiest driver in the world or whatever it was, and maybe that was hyperbole, but he is onto something. Like he DNF'd out of points in Monaco, good points as well. He'd have scored maybe 6 or 8 points that day. He retired from the Chinese GP. Stroll scored points as a result of 3 disqualifications. Alonso was on course for points in the Miami Sprint, if you remember. He was doing very well there. Stroll was on the right strategy. 2 post-race penalties give Stroll a P5. Alonso was on course for points in Imola as well, where they drastically improved. Strategy went wrong. Fought his way back to P11. Alonso, I think, has been the better of the 2 drivers. But look at the points, and apparently not.
Mark Stroll, greatest of all time. Debate it in our comments, please.
You went for, the kettle's on.
The kettle's on. Actually, there we go. It's just turned off. We're brewing now, folks. We're brewing. And that's exactly what Aston Martin are doing. They are brewing. And I was sat here, when Ben does a lot of his assignments that we put together, I was sat there trying to think of a fun way to talk about the Goliath that's about to come over the hill that I think is Aston Martin. Slightly scary how possibly good they could be. And they're starting to show their hand just a little bit. Start of this season was pretty abysmal. Lance Stroll did well in the chaotic Australian Grand Prix. And start of the season, got lucky, as Ben has just broken it down. And then over time, Lance Stroll again does well in Silverstone, but Alonso does well where Alonso does well. He's able to chip away, pick up points, regularly starts getting into Q3. And then we have the issue of Spa, and you think, good Lord, you guys suck. You're so slow. How are you 19th and 20th in a straight line? And then Harry Eid, in all his glowing wisdom, the oracle of Aston Martin, declares that they may have brought the updates for the wrong race. And actually, they were meant for Hungary. And lo and behold, Fernando Alonso is suddenly the man behind the fight for the podium. And the car is actually good. Now, that team is a bit of a super force of other race teams coming together. You've got Nui, you've got Cal, you've got a lot of experts from a lot of these top teams who are starting to work away. And much like the Williams story that I was describing earlier, they are aware that their battlefield that they're readying up for is the start of 2026. And I think Lawrence Stroll has based billions on 2026. I think he's assigned so much growth both to the Aston Martin brand as a car brand, but to the racing brand of Formula One as well, that it has to be a success. And in theory, he's picked up all the shiny rare cards, all the ones that everyone looks for that you think, oh, I want the shiny blue eyes white dragon from my Yu-Gi-Oh collection, please.
Whoa, Yu-Gi-Oh reference.
Yu-Gi-Oh reference. What year is it? 2003. That's what Adrian Newey is. And he's about to be played on the field. And you've already seen, I imagine, we make jokes about how Newey might glance over the car whilst in the canteen and stick a post-it note in someone's pocket and it adds 2/10 to that car. We're about to see that happen with the absolute top-level state-of-the-art technology. And because of where they were in the championship beforehand, they have a bajillion zillion hours in the wind tunnel. They could put me in the wind tunnel and make me faster and still have enough time to actually make a good F1 car. That's how much potential they have right now. So we've seen glimmers, we've seen flashes. Like in a horror film, when you hear the twig crack in the background, you're like, uh-oh, the evil thing is nearby. Yeah. That's them. They're out there in the woods and they're looking at the top four through the window of the mansion going, just you wait. The moment the door opens, we're going to be there. I'm excited by it. But I really do think that Aston Martin could be deadly next season. I am waiting for Honda to turn around to give Fernando Alonso a GP2 engine. Oh. They have no control over that, but we'll see. We'll see. I think it could be pretty scary.
Sauber. Now, I say that confusingly because we still have teams to go after Sauber. But we do this in championship order. So how are we doing Sauber this early on?
Cheat code.
Doesn't make sense. And that leads me quite nicely on to my 3-word summary, to be honest, which is hope feels weird.
Let Wheatley cook.
Okay. I'll start us off. Hope feels weird because, again, have we ever done this? We've done this a few times, maybe 4th time we've ever done this, possibly. Have we ever done this while being positive about Sauber?
Since Kick Sauber joined, have they ever been off the back of the championship standings, other than now?
Good question. I don't know.
I mean, alphabetically, they're not at the bottom. So at the start of the 2025 season, they would have been.
But yeah, it's just odd to be actually positive about them. But there is reason to be. Obviously, they had a tough start in that they only had 6 points after, what was it, like the first 7 races or so of the season.
And it came from a chaotic Australian Grand Prix.
That it did. But the last 6 races, 45 points in 6 races for Sauber. And I was curious about this because I was tallying up how many points they'd had in the last 6 races and wondering when was the last time Sauber in any form had a 6-race stretch where they had more than 45 points.
It's got to be a while, isn't it?
2012.
The same time that Mercedes had their similar bag start.
True. But yeah, you have to go back 13 years for the last time that Sauber, and that includes Alfa Romeo when they were them for a few years, the last time they had such a good 6-race stretch. I think they're happy with both drivers, right? Like Hülkenberg has come in and done exactly what you want Hülkenberg to do, which is lead the midfield pretty much. He's P9 in the championship. He's taking opportunities whenever they come about. Bortoleto, tough start, but as a rookie, you're probably expecting that. He's done what you'd hope too. Like he has improved as the year's gone on. He's beaten Hülkenberg on occasion to the point where, you know, he's beaten Hülkenberg more times than Hülkenberg's beaten him in qualifying. And in races, it's not that far off either. The points gap is maybe a touch misleading. They've been reasonable at different circuits as well. Like if you look at the last 6 races, they've been good at Silverstone and Hungary and Spain and Canada. There's not a lot that links these tracks together. So congratulations to them for this uptick in performance. Last thing I did want to mention, and maybe this quite nicely leads on to the Jonathan Wheatley discussion, is pit stops. They have been so much better at pit stops this year. I couldn't quite believe this is right, but I was looking at obviously DHL. They sort of sponsor the pit stops.
DHL fastest pit stop award.
Damn right. Their average pit stop time this year has been faster than McLaren at 9 of the 14 races. Like they have been really like McLaren have got to like 1.8 and 1.9, and so have Red Bull and Ferrari. They're not quite there, but they have really consistently been like 2.5 to 3 seconds throughout this year. To the point where, remember the beginning of last year where they couldn't do one in under 15 seconds. Like it's a turnaround in that regard as well. So a lot of optimism.
Yeah, let Wheatley cook. And I think a lot of this structural, cultural shift is coming from him. You have to remember that he only joined that team right at the start of this year. He basically had no time to make an immediate impact. And let's be honest, they only scored points in Australia due to the chaos that ensued with the weather and Hülkenberg's fine driving. So for all intents and purposes, I'm kind of going to eliminate that from how I'm looking at the season when attributing things to Jonathan Wheatley. In China, 0 points. Japan, 0 points. Bahrain, 0 points. Saudi Arabia, 0 points. Miami, 0 points. Imola, 0 points. Monaco, 0 points. Now that feels about enough time as a team principal to settle. Feels like you've looked around, you've checked in all the cupboards, you've dusted away some cobwebs, and you've thought, okay, guys, time to start implementing things. Let's start getting things right. Spain, all right, benefited from the safety car, but they were right there, 10 points. Canada, yeah, there was a DNF, but still good enough for 4 points. Austria, great Grand Prix for them, 6 points. No real issue as well either. It's not like they picked up too much. Max Verstappen and Anthony out, but 2 DNFs in a Grand Prix, relatively standard. Great Britain, 15 points. I know Bortoletto was out of that Grand Prix, but Hulkenberg, great strategy call as well from them. They were fantastic all race. Even Belgium, which has been their worst Grand Prix in the last 6, they pick up 2 points out of that race. And then Hungary, they pick up another 8. As you mentioned, Ben, there are no characteristics that link these tracks, other than the fact that their team principal has settled. Jonathan Wheatley, who comes from one of the most organized and clinical cultures in Formula One in Red Bull, has had the chance to basically get his little mitts in and start playing around with what Sauber could do and what Audi have trusted him to do before they become Audi. Now, if the last 6 performances that they've had as Sauber, if these are the first 6 performances that they have as Audi, fair play. That's a solid start for a new team. If they walk away with 45 points or so from their first 6 Grand Prix, that would sit them around 4th or 5th in the constructors fight. That's really solid. And that's a great turnaround because that will be a good step forward from Sauber and it shows you that Audi are here to fight. Hulk's been a great buy. The fact that Haas let him go that easily is just comical. Now, I know it's the German contingent. I know he's got that link to them. And I know he wants a project. Makes sense. He's got his first podium out of it. It makes sense. But they should have held on to him tooth and nail, I think, for a little while longer. And Bortoletto was a risky choice. But it's a risky choice that's paid off. And he is really, really starting to flourish. And the more the car flourishes, Bortoletto continues to flourish as well. So I think Jonathan Wheatley at the helm is a massive miss for Red Bull. I really think he had been around such an incredibly successful team for so long and understood how to run a team, maybe with that less controversy, that he was the natural successor to when Christian Horner was moving away. And they lost it, just like they've lost many others. And Sauber are there to reap the rewards. So this is exciting, genuinely exciting to see how this goes and for Audi to come in and be an actual competitive force.
Not to go at Red Bull again, but if we get to next year and we've got a situation in F1 where Audi are cooking with Wheatley at the helm, you've got Adrian Newey who might turn this Aston Martin thing around, plus Rob Marshall keep doing what he's doing at McLaren. That's a tough pill to swallow for Red Bull, I think.
How funny would it be if Christian Horner comes in as the team boss at Cadillac and then beats Red Bull?
Yeah, heard that rumor a few times. We will see. Racing Bulls are up next. 3 words for them.
I did have to avoid their absolutely pointless comment, but
well done.
Yes, I have actually gone for focus on Hadjar was my 3 words.
I've gone with my new favourite phrase, which is second-hand turmoil.
Is that how we operate as a podcast?
Sort of, yes.
One of us does something and the other 2 have to deal with second-hand turmoil.
Yes, pretty much. But you think there should be a focus on Hadjar?
I do. And I want to start this point off by not talking about Hadjar, but by actually talking about Liam Lawson, because it sounds like I'm completely disregarding him.
Oh,
I'm not.
No, we hate Liam Lawson now. Sorry, it's so difficult to keep up with this because at the beginning of the year, we were like Lawson fanboys and apologists, and now we hate him.
Well, in the Formula One world, you say one thing and apparently you annoy an entire fan base. Yeah. You can't just have a fair and critical point of view about someone. Liam Lawson has developed brilliantly so far this season. He had a rough start to this year. He got chucked out of a team after 2 races. It took a while for him to build his confidence back. But the last 4 or 5 Grand Prix, he's been really, really good. I just want to start with that point. The issue for me with Liam Lawson is his ceiling, his ability ceiling, and how old he is in the sport. I know that sounds awful because he's 7 years younger than me, I think. 7 years old. I may as well be in my eyes. Over the hill, yeah. Yeah, I mean, I'm if he's over the hill, I'm buried underneath it. So that's no disrespect to Lawson, just with how young Hadjar is. He's 20 years old, is Isaac Hadjar. the fact that he's starting so well, and he's made some rookie errors. Again, he's not been flawless. He's had some times where his pace has been off, where strategy has meant he's been stuck behind cars that he hasn't passed. But in a world where I believe that Racing Bulls is a waste of a spot on this Formula One grid, and I've stood by that point for maybe the 7-8 years we've done this podcast.
Yeah, that hasn't changed.
I really get frustrated by this being a team when you've got brands that want to come into this sport because they'll never win anything. They need to do the one thing they should be doing well, and that is building young talent for a Red Bull team. And while a Red Bull team is floundering, they have no direction, they have no understanding of what's going on, the one thing that Racing Bulls can do to ensure that they are giving Red Bull a lifeline is providing them a driver that is genuinely going to be pretty solid, pretty decent when the time comes that a seat or a car that is worthwhile is available. If Max Verstappen leaves at the end of 2026, if Yuki Tsunoda, I don't know, strikes up a deal with Honda, or they boot him out too early and they are lost on where to go, Isaac Hadjar will be the man that fills one of those seats. He will be the guy that takes one of those spots, and he needs to be ready. He needs to be good, and the car needs to operate with him, so he needs to know what to drive. Hadjar is, whether they like it or not, a key part of Red Bull's future right now, and they will be audacious, stupid to throw that away because he is, I'm not saying he's special. He's not Max Verstappen quality right now, but he's really good. He's a race winner. You know, the guy can go on to win Grand Prix. The guy can go on to help a team take a championship in a few years to come. And if you were to throw that away because of how you have dealt with your junior programming in previous years, that would be a real miss. A real miss, especially when this team can't ever go on to actually win regular Grand Prix or even fight for a championship. So do the one thing you're meant to do. Focus on your young driver and make him the best he can be.
Yeah, I've gone with secondhand turmoil because, and it goes back to your point of being annoyed at the makeup of the team and what the team is there for, and it's ultimately not to be its own entity and win championships. We have in Formula One quite regular turnaround when it comes to drivers and, you know, team principals quite recently as well. And we sometimes agree with the decisions. Sometimes we disagree with the decisions. Like you look at, I said it earlier, like Sauber and Audi deciding that they want to go down the route of Binotto and Wheatley. Haas made the call to get rid of Steiner and they wanted to put Komatsu in place. Alpine have made like 4 changes in the last 2 years. And some of those I agreed with, some of those I disagreed with. But the point is, all of them have something in common. It's because the team wanted to make the call. Here we have Racing Bulls, who have a new team principal and a new driver compared to the start of this year, and neither of them are because they wanted that to happen. It's because it was forced upon them by another team, that being Red Bull, which I fundamentally don't enjoy. I think they've coped with it pretty well. Like, Hadjar has been the best qualifier outside of the top 4 teams so far this year. Lawson has turned it around. Like, the last few races in particular have been very impressive to the point where he is points-wise only just behind Isaac Hadjar now. But yeah, I think they've coped okay. It's felt to me like in this midfield battle, you know, Williams and Haas, they kind of started quite well and have faded a bit. Aston Martin have been a bit up and down. Sauber have been far better more recently versus the start of this year. Racing Bulls have kind of just been there. Consistently okay.
And they always are. They're just there.
Yeah.
That's the word for them.
Should we move on to Haas?
Yeah. For me, Haas is a confusing one. And that's kind of where I let my brain go for my 3-word summary. Because I've gone with, need a map.
Ooh. The former postman.
Okay, I thought mine was going to be confusing. You might have to kick off with that, Ben.
Yeah, I might have to. The former postman. It's cryptic, isn't it?
Is it because Hulk always delivered?
It's because postmen famously don't deliver on Sundays, which is what Haas used to do. They used to be very good on a Saturday, but get to a Sunday and they couldn't hack it. For whatever reason, we're kind of in the opposite situation now. I went back and looked at Haas's, Haas's best qualifier over the last few seasons. 2022 was Kevin Magnussen. He had an average starting position of 12.36, and he had 9 Q3 appearances. 2023, it was Hulkenberg. Average starting position of 12.14, 8 Q3 appearances. And 2024, it was Hulkenberg again. Average starting position, even better, 11.70, 11 Q3 appearances. This year, so far, their best qualifier just is Esteban Ocon. Average starting position, 14.93. So over 3 positions worse than Hulkenberg's average last year, and only 2 Q3 appearances. But in terms of the races, they're on track for 60 points right now, which would be better than all of those 3 years I just went through. The race pace is better. It's inconsistent, but it's better than it has been in the past. Ocon is top 10 in the championship right now. He's had some great results. Behrman has been knocking on the door of points quite a lot. Behrman's finished between 11th and 14th 7 times this year. Like, he has been regularly on the cusp. It's just weird how it's kind of flipped.
Yeah, mine is kind of similar, to be fair, in the sense that Haas have picked up 35 points so far this season. And what's the most confusing element of this, which we've spoken about so many times, Ben, is the inconsistency of both drivers finishing in the points when they are actually scoring points. It's happened twice all season, right? But they've actually scored points in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 Grand Prix. Actually, take that back, it's 6, because in the Belgian Grand Prix, it was the sprint race where they got 0 points in the main Grand Prix, but a double points finish in the sprint. Yeah. And this is why I said, do you need a map? Because I think you're lost. I don't think you've got a clue what to do with your setups. I don't think you've got a clue that how your drivers prefer to drive. And it is bizarre to see such a juxtaposition between teammates race by race, weekend by weekend. The fact that in China, they went and scored 14 points across the whole race. In Australia, the week before, it was 0. And Japan, the week ahead, it was 1. That doesn't make sense. And then after Bahrain, when they picked up 5, they had 3 races in a row with a big fat 0 on their cards. They do not know the strengths and weaknesses of their car. After a year of praising Komatsu, after saying that he had understood the flaws in the car, he had kind of taken these big leap forwards, which were obvious check-off boxes. You know, understand how the tyres work was a big one in Formula One. He actually understood that, implementing it into the car. And we saw that leap forward. I think if Ben, your stats right there, it showed they had that leap forward, that they were picking up better qualifying places. They weren't falling further back in the actual races, which we found so often the years before. They couldn't maintain the good starts they were actually able to pick up on a Saturday. Whereas here, neither is happening. Sometimes they'll qualify at the back of the grid and they'll score a point. But sometimes they'll qualify in Q3 and they won't score any points. And it's just baffling. And I do not think they understand what is right and what is wrong with their car right now. And I'm praying that is because their focus is purely on 2026, and it should be. They are one of the teams that if they ever want to achieve anything in Formula One, they've never had a podium in this sport. They acted like they had in the F175 reveal, but they have been a mid-table team for their entire existence. If they want to have a podium in this sport, they're going to be the second-class American team very, very soon at this rate. With Cadillac coming through, they need to nail 2026. And I'm hoping that's why it's been so topsy-turvy for them, because, boy, they'd be lost.
Team 10 of 10 is Alpine. Oh, dear, Alpine.
Is that your 3 words?
You know what? It might as well be. It might actually be kinder than the 3 words I've got.
I'm just writing mine down. This is fun if you're on Spotify, by the way.
Everything's fun on Spotify. Sorry.
We love Spotify. Good job, Spotify. Right, I'm ready to go.
Okay, my 3 words, sell the team.
Please just sell.
Yeah, all right.
You want to kick off the run?
Yeah, I'll keep this one short and sweet. Just sell the team. Like when we did this last time, again, it was 5 races into this season. So we've only had like 9 races since then. They had a team principal in Ollie Oakes. They had a head of Renault in Luca De Meo, and they had a driver in Jack Doohan. They now have none of those 3, but they do still have Flavio Briatore.
Through weird scenarios as well. Like it's not like it's been like illogical as to why those things have changed, really.
Sure.
And then Flav, the ever consistent, he is still there,
but also not there because he's not an employee of Alpine,
which is bizarre. It's bizarre how he's around. I'm not going to go into it, but. your engines and your gearboxes are now coming from Mercedes because you couldn't be bothered. You didn't know how to make them competitive. So you thought we'll just become a pure customer team, which is a shame because realistically on French manufacturing, it's a real slight. It's a real shame because Renault are the largest French manufacturer and one of the biggest global manufacturers. And you can't even rely on your own power units. You can't rely on your own gearboxes to create a competitive vehicle. Regularly, throughout the last few seasons, Alpine have moaned that their engine power is lower than everyone else's, and they're lucky there's a rule set that keeps them within a percentage level of those in front. Because I fear they will just drop and drop and drop and drop, and they haven't because of this. They've lost one of their best drivers in Ocon, and in their second seat has been floundering because of that. We've had Doohan come through, and I think he wasn't given enough time. And now we've got Colapinto in the seat, and unfortunately, I don't think he's going to be given enough time. And there was potential in both, realistically. They've had tough times, but there's potential in both. And poor Gasly, the only man that's actually there to stand the tail, to tell the tale of, the test of the times, there's likely that he's going to be wasted. His talent's just going to be wasted, or he might get a move away. I don't know why his agent isn't pushing for him to get a move away. Maybe he likes being the big fish in the little pond that is Alpine right now. I don't know. But he's so much better than that team. And it's a real shame that he's languishing at the back of a grid, scoring their only points that he can. Everything is wrong. Everything is wrong. The ownership model doesn't make sense. They're left outside of this Renault group. They're not liked. They're not selling more cars on the street. It's just wrong. The whole thing is wrong.
Keep it up, Alpine. And who knows, maybe next time we do this, you might be the penultimate team or something. That's all 10 teams and 3-word summaries for all of them. Let us know, obviously, if you have a creative 3-word tale about each of these teams and what we could focus on rather than what we have today.